In this Japanese story of a reversal of Hansel and Gretel, it is the children who had to carry the old parent to the mountain and left them there to die, a grim tale of the brutality and the unforgiving nature of economic reality and hardship. This 1958 Kinoshita Kaisuke movie is based on a Fukazawa Shikiro's novel in 1956, a mere decade after Japan barely emerged from the war ruins, when its collective national psyche was probably still scarred by grave of the fireflies syndrome, haunted by the hardship and the destitute in the waning moment of the war. But the novel and the movie are not an over-dramatization of the hard times of a 19th-century poor rural village in Japan. The Ballad of Narayama is actually the Ballad of Japan in the 21st century, not a poor remote village but the world's third-largest economy. Some younger Japanese like this economist, has a flair for a cinematic solution to the Japan gerontological economic problem. Laparotomy exsanguination, death may occur faster than hypothermia or exposure. The problem is actually not just for Japan, it is a worldwide problem as people live longer. Consider the US and Japan population distribution, world's two largest democratic economies. Each column represents the population of an age group, from under 5, in step of every 5 years of age, all the way to above 80. The top is for females, the bottom is for males. The median age divides the population into two equal parts. Thus, in 1960, a woman of 30.5-year-old in the US will be younger than 50% of all other women, and also 50% older than others. The median age for Japan back then was 26.6, it means Japan was younger than the US. Since then, the demographics for both have changed over the last 60 years. Both countries are becoming older, but Japan aging went much further than the US. Japan had a post-war baby boom peaking in 1947, right after World War II. The US baby boom stretched longer into the 50s. Each baby boom generation produced a boomlet when they themselves had children. But once the boom and boomlet were over, the birth rate in Japan steadily declined, while the old people, especially females above 80, live much longer and have a large presence. The crisis is from the fact that Japan median age is closer to the retirement age. There aren't enough young workers to pay tax to care for the large old population. This is the same crisis in the US, which is the social security benefits paid to old retirees. Even China is not escaping this demographic bomb, as Chinese no longer have enough young children, and China is getting older like everyone else. As the saying goes, time spares no one, and age will catch up with anybody. Vietnam at the current trend will find herself not as young as she once thought she was, and the root cause of the old age malaise of Japan is already taking place in Vietnam. This Vietnam population age distribution is a combination of modeling based on the World Bank numbers, and a model for future projection up to 2080. The most salient feature is how Vietnam grew from 40 years ago, and went through a baby boom, a bust, and a boomlet. The key point here is that Vietnam was once young long ago, but has been getting older the last 20 years, and the trend will continue with similar socio-economic implications like other countries. Consider the most recent year with data, 2020. The chart shows 4 quartiles. 25% of the female population is under 17.4-year-old, 25% between 17.4 and 33.4-year-old, another 25% between 33.4 and 50.4, and the rest is above 50.4. The quartile ages for the male population are slightly smaller because there are more younger males than females on both end, at birth, and old age. In the follow, as time progresses, observe the various quartile ages increasing and the quartile zones expanding up, indicating that the population are getting older. In the 1980s 50% of Vietnam were around low 20s, but since 2000, Vietnam has gotten old faster and the median ages are now into the low 30s. This chart also shows the problem of gender imbalance of Vietnam. It is normal that there are many older females than males, as women live longer. but this large discrepancy that there are far more young males than females is abnormal for Vietnam and can be a problem. This projection into the future up to 2080 is optimistic, as it assumes Vietnam birth rate and gender selection will assume a normal pattern. In this case, Vietnam age distribution will be stabilized and the optimistically projected median age will be in the 40s. Even so, that is still 10 years older than the current, and Vietnam socio-economic conditions must be ready by then to adapt to the demographic changes. This chart is another way to look at the problem. It shows the projected Vietnam population to the next century. The decline of the population beyond 2050 is actually not the problem. The problem is this: the percentage of retiring age population. The number of potential retirees is projected to increase 2.5 times from around 9% in 2020 to roughly 23%, almost 1 in 4. This is like a big family with many children and grandchildren supporting grandparents, versus a 2.5 times smaller family. Can Vietnam economy at that time support this condition? The critical parameter is the birth rate. Shown are the past birth rate, and the hypothetical future birth rate. At this birth rate, Vietnam in 20 years will be as old as Japan is presently. The population will decline, the median age will be in the 50s and the people in retiring age will be 1 in 3, as opposed to 1 in 11 right now. The birth rate can be varied, and consider an optimistically higher birth rate than the last 10 years. At the highest realistic level, the population is high but the age distribution is at a sustainable level. Although the median age is 5 years older than the current, it is roughly comparable to most developed economies, and should be fine if Vietnam is also well developed. Observe the demographics change with varying birth rate. It is not unrealistic or pessimistic to consider the low birth rate because Vietnam working women, like those in Japan, South Korea and China, may choose not to have children. This birth rate is quite realistic and probable, and it is not far-fetched to prepare for a population peaking in 30 years and an old society, which is happening in Japan and soon in China. Vietnam is in its baby boomlet passing phase, hence, small children will decline the next 10 years. On the other hand, the 2023 older children are from the boomlet upswing 5 to 10 years ago, hence, both middle and high school age groups are booming, which form a significant segment of the market. The college age group, however, has been on the decline, but this hits the bottom in 2023-2024, and when the middle and high school boomlet grow in the next 5 to 10 years, higher education will be in demand again. For the broad young workforce up to 30, however, the labor market is still tight for employers. Hence it will be employees' market for the next few years, until the college age group graduates and joins the workforce. Lastly, there are two important demographics with significant social implications. The first is the childbearing woman group, which the model uses a probability distribution from the age of 16 to 39. This group will be on the decline the next 10 years, hence, the Vietnam birth rate will drop, leading to the predicted decline of toddler and kindergarten shown above. The second group is the people in the retiring age. This is not 10 or 20% change, this is doubling or even more, and it will be a real social challenge in terms of health and human service. More importantly, those who will be in this age group in 10 or 15 years down the road will need comprehensive financial planning services. Vietnam folklores have its share of stories about abuse and neglect of old parents. The Ballad of Narayama or the Ballad of Japan isn't unique to Japan. With planning and luck of socio-demographics trend, Vietnam may be able to handle its old age challenge.